Alright, a do not to God.com video production. Yeah, why not? It's some sort of introduction. So anyway, I suppose I will attempt to make some sort of response to Superhuman Dance, who again is screaming for attention, and can't do much about it. Don't see any point in it really, but there are subjects, I guess, that somehow these subjects are important to people, and I don't really understand why they're important. These subjects about how to interact with humans and how to convince them and what arguments you're allowed or not allowed to use when you're attempting to convince them and all of this mush. I think it's a valid conversation to have how to, it's like the formula for making movies, right? I mean, it's kind of a known fact that you do these certain things, Shakespearean kind of lessons. You create a sympathetic character, an underdog, get people invested in its welfare, make it very, very likable, and then you make the enemies very, very hateable, and blah, blah, blah. It's just a formula. And so, yeah, there's some strategic sense, if you're going to be making a movie, to follow recipes that work, to at least be knowledgeable enough to know that those recipes exist, so that you don't make some critical error where the viewer hates all the characters in the movie and just doesn't give a shit if they all die. That kind of thing. That's going to be a failure to your movie. People aren't going to get caught up in it, kind of thing. And so you can make those kinds of arguments. And they have some validity. If we're all attempting to construct one thing and said, this is the way, then fine. I've sort of made it sort of clear that that's not my agenda at this point. I mean, I wish to formulate a statement about reality, write a pamphlet, because it shouldn't be any bigger than a pamphlet, frankly, where anybody could pick it up and find it just irrefutable. That it explains why water's wet, it explains why the truth is evolution, and all those things. It takes care of all these arguments and just lays it out kind of plainly that you're just this mechanical robot and you're going through this procedure because evolution made you, and the process doesn't really care about perfecting anything or improving anything. It just cares about winners and losers. And you're not really going to win anything. You're not fixing anything in the universe. You're not healing any wound that exists without your existence. You're not a cure for any disease. And the simple truth is to do whatever you're doing, it's very expensive. That is, your own existence will be expensive, and the existence overall, that is, the fact that most of the other people not having this conversation are not in some utopia, living some beautiful life. They're actually burdened and covered in the fetters of hardship, however you want to poetically put it. And it isn't going to be a good story. There's people in the insane asylum, and people under burning trucks, and people falling off of bridges, and all kinds of stuff is happening that's very bad. And that's the real price being paid. And then you can just take the logical step to understand that, well, that's also happening to all these animals. They're caught in leg-hold traps or something and gnawing their own leg off, and all kinds of horrible, awful things are taking place. And what is the byproduct? What is the accomplishment of all of that? Is just some song we're singing. We're dancing in some kind of little, gyrating vaginas or something. Some kind of thing that you find appealing in some way. And that's just so special. So it's just, but it's like a little cinnamon bun or something in the oven. Oh, it's just a precious little smell, and I just can't wait to. And it's just a trivial accomplishment. This little bit of gratification we get. The guy holding up his gold medal, the Olympics. It's a 60 seconds of glory, and then you go back to the grind, of being human. So anyway, so I think it can be consolidated down, and a nice, clean argument can be made. Blah 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 blah. But I don't see any point in just getting people to follow like religious nuts, right? Who haven't even read their Bible, You know, it's okay if people want to do that. I just don't think that's the right way. I don't think you get people to, just as they, you know, most of the sin is being perpetrated by the people who are pointing fingers saying don't be a sinner, right? So these aren't going to be this isn't going to be a very reliable bunch of people who are to manage this very important task of allowing us to gracefully exit the universe. You want people who understand, not people who don't, who are just walking in another parade. You don't want parade people in your parade. Okay. Anyway, so but I just don't. I don't see any point in this conversation with this. He's a fucking lunatic, frankly. Yeah, so I'm sorry you're having whatever troubles you're having with your own identity crisis, but that's all it looks like to me. So we'll play some of that, and the more interesting thing is this cosmic something or other skeptic who's I don't know why he's relevant, but whatever. I mean, he talks okay. He's blah blah blah, but I don't know what he's philosophically bringing to the conversation besides having the ability to maybe compare Hume to Kant or something, and do some of this whatever the babble of the German philosophers or something, and see how many knots and how complicated you can make something that's very simple. But clearly gets lots of views and all that kind of crap. But it was just funny because he got on the subject of the red button, and it's just very funny that they have a discussion of anti-natalism, and I'm not saying I should be at least a footnote somewhere, I would imagine, and especially when they start talking about the red button. I mean, if you go back in time when I first made the video talking about the red button, I mean there were people threatening to get the FBI after me and all kinds of things. I mean, it wasn't a conversation anybody was ready for. Nobody could just say, yeah, let's talk about blowing the planet up. And so it's just kind of, I mean, yeah, I feel a little dissed, but that's all right. That's life. Life is being dissed all the time. At every opportunity you will be. So, but anyway, so it's just kind of funny because the fact is he knows the arguments win, but he just doesn't want to concede that it's an overwhelming victory logically. You just can't get around it. That there's no way you torture people for cinnamon buns. I mean, it's just too stupid. And let alone people, you just torture animals and all this. No, you just don't do it. It's just insane. And basically the red button is basically saying to you, it's now going to be on you. All of their torture has now been sanctioned by you by not pressing it. You're basically committing it. You're committing the crime. And as soon as you do that, it just becomes so obvious that, yes, you can't just sit there and do nothing. No. But anyway, it just seemed funny that the pretense of his struggle, because he just doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't want to concede, yes, this is all fucktarded, and there's just absolutely no way to justify the inequity of it. Deserve has to have something to do with it. If deserve doesn't have something to do with it, then you can't do it. I mean, it's wrong for so many reasons. All right. So, yeah, well, we have to do the other asshole first, unfortunately. So, I mean, watch at your own risk. It's just...
This is what happens when you breed normally.
Another douche with ads. That seems part of his agenda. He's trying to build himself a channel where he can, live off this and all that kind of crap. It seems quite obvious. Just whoring for popularity, forcing himself to be relevant. But just, he made another 5-hour video where he just kept defending the most fallacious of arguments, which is you just walk up to anybody and you just say, how many people did you axe murder today? Do you have any proof that you didn't axe murder people today? I mean, it's just the biggest fail of an argument, to require somebody else to prove their innocence when you didn't provide one shred of evidence for their guilt. Just amazingly bad behavior.
Welcome back, YouTube, to another live stream and video recording for afterwards. So, Inmendham Debate Challenge. Figured I'd just put a video out there in the title.
Yeah, what is there to debate except how big an asshole are you? I mean, you're not. There's no rational debate, in my opinion. I mean, I'm going to debate somebody who's going to tell me there's no truth. And that's what he's going to say here. There's no truth. Like evolution and God. There's no right answer. Of course there is. And there's overwhelming evidence. So again, and so we're supposed to suspend the fact that we have a capacity to understand reasonable and airtight even. That, yeah, we don't need any more evidence. There's no plausible way. Okay? I mean, plausibility even, is a reasonable definition of when you can be confident, is when you can't plausibly come up with any other explanation. But yeah, that's our function, to sit there and pretend you can do anything at all in the world ever. If you're going to play some game is I can't be sure. That's silly.
Gary, we have disagreements on the question.
Yeah, I disagree with 99.99999% of the people on Earth. Why do I have to pay attention to your disagreements with me? Why? Who the fuck are you?
On multiple questions. But the main one you answer yes to and I answer no to. I went over in the last discussion. So
the last 4.5 hour video? Yeah, right. Sure, I'm going to watch that. Not. So I'll just say I've watched 2 minutes of this.
Okay with people claiming that they appear to have the truth, but Gary just overtly says that he has the truth, which is just beyond.
I'm saying that from all I can observe, there's no counter argument. I can't find any reasoned, better rational argument than the argument I have for what I state to be the truth. So I'm merely arguing from the position of saying the evidence indicates. Now, there's some things I know with greater certainty than other things. Like in physics, I'll often point out, well, this is an 80%er, and maybe this one's for sure. There's distinctions. I don't claim that everything I'm saying or everything I've ever said is the only and the absolute truth. So again, it's another false accusation made where he's not going to find the video where I make those emphatic statements. So again, this is like I have to defend myself from his reckless and sloppy accusations. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to waste my time defending myself against somebody who has no evidence for what they're asserting? I mean, fuck you. Yeah, I had to take a little brief pause.
Beyond arrogant, beyond lying.
Beyond lying. So it's lying to say, I'm confident. I've even said in my videos that a lot of the things I'm asserting, I would go to the torture chamber for. Like for the right to die or for, these different salvation arguments. If I'm wrong, you can gut me in the center square. Pull my guts out while I'm still alive. I'm so confident. So I'm merely explaining how I've seen no evidence. Looking around the world, listening to other people talk philosophically, I see no evidence, no reason to doubt my confidence in things like evolution. That's how we got here. UFOs didn't put us here. Gods didn't put us here. None of that crap happened. We evolved right here on this fucking planet. That's the truth. And I'm insanely confident in the sense that there's absolutely no counter theory that has a shred of credibility. Just a fact. And you're saying I should still doubt because somebody can draw a cartoon somewhere, that I should believe in it. I should believe it's possible that Bugs Bunnies do exist because somebody can draw a cartoon of one. No, I shouldn't.
Anybody that's claiming that is ultimately akin to someone that is claiming, like, for Christians and Muslim people, for example, when they claim that they have the Kalam cosmological argument, and cause and effect cause the Kalam cosmological argument to be true because it caused their God to be true.
Yeah, and so the thing you need to do is show where evolution is the same as that argument, where all you're saying is my God says so, when you're not saying yes, every bit of evidence in the world says so, and there's absolutely no evidence counteracting that theory. There's just no reason to doubt. There's no reason to doubt, and you're saying yet I should still doubt. They have no reason to believe. They have no evidence defending their proposition for a reality, a statement. They're making a statement, water sings and dances. Okay, I'm making the statement, water's wet. Okay, so I'm saying here, this is how I can defend my statement, because the word wet was invented to describe what the quality water has, so it's a sure thing. Can't lose with that one. Definitely true. Where their statement that, this story they're telling, there's absolutely no evidence that water sings and dances. There's no video, there's no audio, there's no written record of it, there's nothing.
If they're claiming that, the best rebuttal to that is just what caused your God. And just like claiming what Gary...
Yeah, again, of statements that have come out of my mouth 10 years ago, okay? I'm perfectly aware of how to argue with religious people, in the sense that in some of the arguments you could say they're kind of Inmendham arguments, and then some of the arguments are, yeah, I'll just go to Dawkins or somebody else and then say go read Darwin. How, there's no way to undo the collection of evidence. So I don't know, what's your argument? You need to instruct me on how to be an atheist? No, I know how to do that. Idiot.
It says brain self-evident, like consciousness self-evident.
It's not self-evident. It's the very fact that we experience it. And so I've made this argument over and over again. What, I'm supposed to pretend my consciousness is completely different than everybody else's consciousness, that it functions different, that I'm real and that they're synthetic, and that's a realistic truth. I'm saying that's a completely unrealistic truth. It has no plausibility. It's completely not connected to any facts I can glean from the world. There's absolutely no evidence of that. So why should I believe it?
You could just rebut it with, did cause and effect make your brain?
And what would that have to do with it? It doesn't make it unconscious because it's cause and effect, therefore I'm unconscious? No. Therefore I don't feel. Feelings aren't real because they're synthetically made in my brain. That means they can't possibly be something value. They can't have value. I mean, I've made these arguments in videos over and over again, that the fact that it's synthetic means absolutely nothing. I'm basically argued that the only way evolution could take place in terms of getting more and more complicated in the sense of creating machines that could value without it being pre-programmed, that is, without having some pre-written program to learn, is that they had to have a reward and punishment system. They had to have some capacity to recognize value individually through their life experience, to value things based on their individual interactions with the world. And so nature came up with a way of synthesizing the idea of value, that is, making value something we see rather than something that is. So everything I see that has value to me has no value in it. It only has value in my perception because I feel, and I have a feeling, and I can be harmed, and I can be pleased. I can be I can be whipped, and I can be unwhipped. These are all arguments I've made over and over and over again. And you don't think you're being some kind of patronizing lunatic to sit there and preach to me? Amazing bullshit.
And then you could ask, what created those things, and what created those things, and what created those things, and what created those things, until you arrive at the start of the universe, and you're like, what created the start of the universe? And
another statement I've been over 4 million times, why would I give a fuck? We already know what made us, which is evolution. And we know the mechanics of evolution. Why do I need to know how the universe began or didn't begin? It could be an oscillating universe, meaning it just was and always is. It could be a universe that creates one new photon every bazillion years, and so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger with time. It could be a universe that just blew up, and yes, it's going to expand into nothing. It could be lots of different things. Why do I give a fuck? Why is that the conversation, especially in the context where we know how literally impossible it is for us to do much in the universe?
If they give you an explanation for that, what started that? What are they going to say? Nothing. And then you just ask them what caused that. Right? So when do they want to contradict themselves? When do they want to look absurd?
So this is what he does. So he's saying that of all the atheists making arguments about why people should be atheists or why people should be evolutionists, he's saying I'm doing it so badly that somehow he has to pull me out of the group of atheists and give me this lesson in how to argue with Christians. Like there's something so obvious that I'm doing wrong and that all the other atheists are doing just fine. So Matt Donnelly, all these other idiots are all just fine, even when they're not arguing anything real in the sense that they take no responsibility for believing in evolution. Richard Dawkins, after writing The Selfish Gene, he writes whatever, the merry-go-round of life or some other kind of insane metaphor. Okay, so, one metaphor is right on, hits you right in the nuts. The other metaphor couldn't be a bigger miss. The greatest show on earth. Veins pumping blood into the grass. Disgustingly stupid metaphor. Because he's running so desperately from, I hurt too many people's feelings with the selfish gene. So now I have to talk about evolution in some fantasy concept, like it's a fun house. Like, this is just going to the fun house, and it has little scary bits in it. Like it's just such a trivial title, a disgustingly trivial title. But you don't think that's bad? No, you think what I'm doing's wrong. Fuck you.
So yeah, I'm okay with people claiming it appears that we have the truth. But just
no, it appears we have the truth. Why qualify it? Why do I have to qualify? If I say that's a story, okay? Red Riding Hood is a story. I don't have to qualify it with it appears to be false. Fuck you.
Overtly claiming that you have the truth is because he's psychotic. It's not because it's because he's...
Right, so you're psychotic if you think there's an actual right answer to the question. I'm overtly asserting it's not both, okay? It's not God and evolution. None of that horseshit is possible or plausible. No reason to believe again. Why should I believe any fable, made-up story, okay, that has absolutely no evidence? All the evidence points to one simple process. You're saying that it's a horrible crime for somebody to say, yes, all the evidence points to one simple process that we've called evolution. We don't need to go any further. We're done. There's enough evidence to convict. You're saying we can't convict, and if we're convicting, we're psychotic. We just have something against the defendant. There's not a whole pile of evidence indicating that's all that needs to be said. I'm saying there's not a shred of evidence that needs any further qualification. It's a truth. It's done. It's convicted. It's right. Anybody who doesn't believe it, in my opinion, is the psychotic one, pointing at you.
Not intelligence, that's why he hasn't been able to have debates of the same caliber that I have had with the same.
Right. So let's understand, why would somebody debate somebody? Let's say somebody who's got a certain amount of popularity. What do we see? Like I see it in physics all the time. They love debating flat earthers. They get lots of views. They get to beat up on people, make them look stupid, and humiliate them. And, it's all a win for them because everybody understands that flat earthers are lying pieces of scum. Anybody who has any integrity. Only the most despicable liars think there's some plausibility to the flat earth theory. So you have to be profoundly ignorant and despicably dishonest to see any value in that nonsense. It's been debunked, it's finished, it's dead. Okay? And so why do people want to debate somebody? They want to debate somebody so they win and they look big. Okay? And so they pick targets. Now, you want to debate me for some reason. Okay? And again, what are you fishing for? Okay? You're just fishing for some credibility, some opportunity. And that's all you're doing, right? So I'm pretty sure that Vegan Gains, for example, didn't come to you, that you went to him begging. Because all you're doing is chasing, okay, networking. And why would Vegan Gains care? Well, he cared because he said, well, look, this guy's an easy target. He's pretty much a lunatic, right? So it's all win for him.
Caliber of people that I've had debates with who have won mass amounts of debates.
Caliber in what sense? So so you use this word caliber. You've had debates with people of caliber. I found Vegan Gains to be pretty inarticulate and useless, frankly, even for the subject of veganism. I mean, his whole purpose, his whole reason for doing it was basically to make some meat versus vegan argument in defense of veganism, in the sense that you can still be a bodybuilder and be vegan, which, theoretically has little plausibility also, because we already know how steroids work and all this other stuff, and you really can't, you're not going to do quite as well on a lean diet. So, but let's, whatever. I don't want to argue metabolism.
With other people, I went in being willing to move past whatever the disagreements were.
You went into what? I didn't see any of that. All I saw was somebody, they let me know, more than one person, that you're talking shit. Okay, so, and then I saw the shit, and I said, yeah, he's talking shit about me. And so I chose to defend myself. And then you just doubled down and decided, now I'm going to accuse him of all kinds of things. I'm going to make these irrational accusations that somehow when he plays somebody's video, he doesn't play their video, which I do. So, I took too long playing their video. Oh, you mean it's that, we just get back to the argument. Somebody can make a lot of accusations in a very short period of time, and it can take you a while. So if I have to actually defend myself against some lie, yeah, it can take a while. Because the facts, okay, you have to compile them and then shove them in somebody's face, where the accusation takes a mere couple of seconds. So you don't seem to understand any of the practical realities, where I could just accuse. You're making a bunch of accusations about what a despicable person you are in your past and present. What kind of shit are you selling? You're selling some sort of gizmo, so you're like a reseller. You didn't really invent it. You're just selling horse shit to dumbasses for twice the price. Or what is your game? So I can make a lot of personal. I can invade your personal life. All right, that's not my game. That's the game you're playing, asshole.
So that we could talk about what appears to be.
You want to talk about a bunch of. You've made thousands of accusations. I mean, literally. Close to it. And you've defended none of them with any compiled evidence. And you're saying you want to have a debate with me where I spend the whole fucking time defending myself against your erroneous accusations? Fuck you.
The most important thing, which is preventing suffering, specifically through not reproducing for humans, and then for animals, we obviously would have to do something about that later on. So
we would obviously have to do something about that later on. Well, that's the whole subject, really, isn't it? What's the something and how do you do it? And the only way it's going to get done is because people have to engineer the solution. They have to work on it. You can't just glibly say, well, we'll take care of that later. That's the whole point of having the right answer and having people who are committed to a cause for the right reasons. Because what it's going to take in the end is the last humans on Earth are going to have to be disciplined to know that they've got to go. And they've got to go in a manner that assures completion of the task. They're going to have to be real workers, not just playing philosophical games.
So yeah, I'm okay with claiming it's like the strongest and what appears to be the truth. But overtly claiming that you have the truth, all it does is stifle conversation, because you'll just get hung up on debates like, for example, my first Vegan Gains debate. Had I let Vegan Gains sit there and pressure me on the Benatarian asymmetry and everything, being neutral, never to have been, and not better, never to have been, and not just moved on to asking of them, which is what in love.
Yeah, whatever. So you're saying it was a great success. Like I said, I found it unwatchable personally, but whatever. Okay, I'm really not going to go back and watch it to see that you made some great victory. But I'm doubting you did. I'm pretty sure that's just your impression of your great victory, because what I was seeing was a bunch of incoherent, disconnected, there's just absolutely no flow to your conversation at all. And So I didn't see any value in it. The subject seemed to get lost in a bunch of gibberish, frankly.
Being does. It would have never gone past that point, ever. So there's a lot of people disliking that. Are you guys new or something? Like, are you not paying attention? If you have any questions for me, I'll answer them right here, right now in the chat. Any questions at all that pertain to this topic, please. Thank you.
It pertains to this topic. It's like this is a complex topic. You're saying you have these grievances. You could, in the other video, you were attempting some list you were making. Well, the least you could have done is posted the list in the description. I mean, can't you narrow your complaint a little bit? Does it have to be in 3-hour form? I mean, you really can't express your distaste for my function in some better way than this? You fucking lunatic. I mean, if we were soda machines and you have a gripe because, I'm the Coke machine and you're Dr. Pepper and you're so cool there. You don't think the soda machine could make its gripe in under 3 hours? Fuck.
I noticed there was 16 dislikes on the last video, so only like 9 likes or something. And no rebuttals to anything that I was saying. So
yeah, I don't think anybody was too enthusiastic about getting caught up in the middle of this, right? I mean, I'm obviously going to resent any asshole who sits there and is applauding your nonsense, right? Oh, you make 900 false accusations, innuendos that I have to defend myself against, and so somebody posting would say, oh yeah, I want to get in the middle of this crap. I don't think so, asshole. Only a lunatic would step into your comment section in this atmosphere, because what can they possibly win? My contempt? Good for them.
I mean, I'm not going away. I'm just here to make some corrections to some people that are preposterously wrong. And
well, it's too bad you can't articulate this preposterous wrongness except to say, when you asserted something as a fact, it isn't a fact because I say it's not a fact. So again, take my quotes, quote something I've said, okay, and demonstrate how it can't be true. Isn't that your obligation? And what are you going to do? You're going to go through, like I said, you're going to find a video I made 10 years ago where I said something poorly or inarticulately and say, there, I got you. Is that the game you're going to play? I'm just saying overall, what is your gripe with my videos or their content? I hear other people reciting my exact language. It comes out of your own fucking mouth, for fuck's sake. Stuff I've said before you. So what is it exactly that I'm saying that is just so obnoxious that you just can't stand it? That you need to make this mess? You crazy fuck.
Yeah. This is the reason why I've been able to get these people who adamantly disagree to either concede or at least do a debate that actually ends up talking about antinatalism and natalism, as opposed.
Yes. Well, anyway, I've had conversations online. I did years worth of debating in Stickam. Okay, I've gleaned whatever argument there is to be had out of the world, and I'm frankly disinterested in what anybody else has to say because they're not saying it better than me. So fuck you. Yeah, it's that simple.
To just talking shit about nothing of merit or value. Because
right. So it's no merit to talk about how we're functional robots and now just meme robots. We were robots just doing the evolution thing, and now we're just robots to memes, to ideas. And I've said it plainly. Yes, I'm a byproduct of a bunch of mush that has the memes of mankind, and so of course cynics would be quite plausible that somebody it would occur to them that, well, if this is bullshit and that's bullshit and that's bullshit, then I might as well say all of that is bullshit also, and I might as well just start over. And that's what I did. I started over as a human being. I said, fuck all of everything I've been told about right, wrong, and value. What the fuck, if I look at it, what does it look like has value? That's all I did. Those are the steps you take. And I didn't read Hume or some other douchebag. Some other religious fuck trying to, or atheist fuck who's just sitting there trying to rationalize a belief system, a bunch of default values that were made in a religious cake pan. Okay, I mean they were made out of the ingredients of religion. They weren't made out of the ingredients of evolution and knowledge of facts.
At the beginning, I just am like, okay, yeah, I don't claim to know the nature of knowledge itself. In like the vegan gains debates, for example, book 1 and 2, at the very beginning of the first one, that's what took place. He tried to pressure about neutral never to have been, and then I was just like, yeah, well, look, we can move past this by just asking of each other and like what each other's values are, not by asserting that you have a value for something. So there's no one type.
Well, there's no neutral between having smallpox and not having smallpox, so that's kind of silly, right? So that argument can't go anywhere as an argument. Okay, if you prevent smallpox, that's a good. If I don't put something, if the bad stuff is going to end up in jars, right? And there's jars that are going to hold the bad experiences. Well, obviously, if I don't put anything in the jars, there's no bad experiences. That's a good thing. So, but whatever. Your conversation with vegan gains is your business. Why does it have something to do with me? I didn't say anything about it. I mentioned it, I think, in a video. There was this debate and blah, blah, blah. And that's, I did my minimal obligation. But yeah, I wasn't interested. I didn't like vegan gains to start with. And I didn't have much to say about you to start with. I watched some of the video and it was boring as fuck. And I said, fuck this.
Typing in the chat at all, there's no rebuttals. So who is the person here that's more reasonable, right? The person who's willing to have the debate, who's willing to have the discussion?
Willing to have a discussion about what? And why would I have a discussion? I mean, I know how to do video exchanges. I know how to make a video response. So why do I need to have a personal conversation with you in any way whatsoever? And how the fuck do you think it would even be plausible or possible? You have made literally, dozens of personal accusations that I find grotesquely offensive. You're a lying sack of shit. Why would I have a conversation with you?
Or the person who just psychotically starts talking down.
Yes, that's what you're behaving like, a psychotic. This is the blueprint of it. You're being a poster child of somebody who's got some deep, fucked up emotional problem and is creating an argument where there was no argument and making accusations that have just no rationality at all. Accusations I could make against any human being on earth.
Down to you and getting enraged at you. Which one is more reasonable to you guys?
Just watch his other video where he played 2 minutes of my video in a 2-hour video, and you'll get the message that he's insane to be making accusations that I give everybody short shrift or something, or I don't play their argument, or in some way I change the subject or do anything else to distract from the fundamental conversation, which is a gross lie because it doesn't happen. And he made the accusation. He didn't prove it with anything. He didn't show the video where somebody said something and I totally ignored it and didn't respond to it, or where I responded to any argument being made in some way that was not relevant to the point being made. Did he show me being irrelevant? No.
Is my question. There's probably some dislikes on here. For some reason, YouTube doesn't show the dislike thing when you're live streaming on your phone. So yeah, quick question.
There was a question?
Yeah, Gary not ever being able to get past this over the years has done so much damage. It's just for his own cause. It's just sort of.
So again, I'm supposed to sit there and pay attention to these kinds of accusations. You'd think if somebody makes these accusations against Richard Dawkins, some douchebag stands up and says, I think you've been bad for the cause of atheism and evolution. Your arguments are silly and disconnected from what the real important argument is, which is well-wishing or whatever. I mean, how crazy are you? Yeah, I don't accept your premise. I don't accept you've provided any evidence of any flaw or dysfunction. You're just a fucking ragged, shitty, slandering jackass.
Unbearable to watch, and yeah, that's why I find him totally insufferable.
Yes, likewise. But I didn't see any need for me to make a video about how insufferable Superhuman Dance is. Why did you feel the need? Oh, that's right, because you have to make yourself into something that's relevant, and you're just doing it through drama whoring, obviously.
So does anybody care to answer? I mean, the questions were already in the first minute, right? I'll ask him again. I mean, I've asked him a bunch of times already. He already answered yes, which leads to contradiction and absurdity. Sorry, that.
Yes, says you. Doesn't no evidence says so. It's absurd to think there isn't one reality, and it's in need of being fairly defended. There's a truth to be described. Either this thing is or is not. And you want to play some game. It's quite obviously green. You want to no, that's blue. It's just blue that's a little dizzy or wobbly, but it's blue. You want to play word games, douche.
Add P and not P absurdity, especially when it stifles the conversation for antinatalism and evilism, which is what it does when he does that. When he talks about the physics crap and he has the truth crap.
So the physics crap is on a completely separate channel now because of whiners like this, right? Who can't handle it. They can't turn a video off because the video isn't on a subject they care about. So you have to put politics separate, you have to put this separate, and this separate, and this separate, because these retards in the audience haven't got any self-control and have no capacity to just say, oh, I'm not going to listen to that video because it's not on a subject I like. And I can only talk about subjects they want to hear about. I'm not allowed to talk about anything else. What a pile of shit.
It just stifles the conversation from happening. If you just look at the cause and effect chain that I ultimately ended up starting, it's not a conspiracy theory. You can see that this is the main thing that's been holding Gary back for years and years and years that I haven't.
Right. So he has a theory that I'm held back by something other than, clearly my language doesn't help any. And my unwillingness to compromise. That is, to pretend somebody's intelligent when they're not. Okay, so I'm not going to network very well because, I'm always, frankly, going to call a shit and an idiot an idiot.
And to see. So I'm just trying to help you guys out so that you can learn and not deal with someone who's obviously...
So does anybody believe that's what he's doing? He's trying to help somebody except himself?
Completely over the top, just asserting that he thinks religious people are crazy, and he's asserting that he has the absolute 100% factual objective.
All right, so again, there's no truth value to his statement. I've never said any such thing. I have said that there's accurate and inaccurate, and I've said that there is this concept of objective, that is the concept of eliminating bias and viewing something for what it is. So I'm saying without optimism bias or some other crap, and you view the thing and you see for what it really is. And that's an objective, more objective point of view. And I've said things like more objective, more perfect. That's the goal, is to get it right, not wrong. And I'm saying the road to right is the objective perception, not the subjective perception. If subjective matters, then yes, cute chicks are definitely better human beings than ugly chicks. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. You don't value things based on these subjective biases that are obvious biases. You don't claim somebody's more human because they're prettier. Obviously, that's a flaw in judgment.
Truth, when he can't answer anything to do with that without contradicting himself or looking absurd.
So go ahead. I mean, again, I could just ask you to please show me looking absurd. I mean, I can't do that to you in the sense that, quote mining. I'm just saying take an average video, a random video from my 9,000 videos. Just pick one out randomly and then show how I'm being absurd. But you don't have, like I said, you have no integrity. This is just such a bullshit accusation. And again, how do I defend myself against it? Play all my videos?
So, and he's, has not debated people of the same caliber as Vegan Gains. He has not debated people of the same caliber as...
Caliber in what way? Popular. So all he's saying by caliber, he just means popular. View numbers. So obviously I did have arguments with the amazing atheist and different people in the past that had some notoriety, more views than I get. But again, I didn't whore for it either, because that's a real thing, whoring for attention. All right, now you say that's a legitimate thing to do. Maybe you think heckling, at a theater is okay. Maybe you think those are all okay behaviors. I'm not a big fan of the act up style of function. I kind of like the idea of, if there's broken rules, you fix the rules. You don't break rules to fix broken. You don't fix something that's broken by breaking it more. So yeah, we disagree on that.
A lot of these vegan people that I've been debating, they are debating people all the time. They are practicing rhetoric all the time. Okay?
Okay, yeah, in the context of, again, I'm just saying, I can point to areas where people get into debates with easy targets. They get into they want to pick ripe fruit, okay? Rotten fruit, it's easy. They don't go after the hard to get stuff. And so I would argue that some of my unapproachability is people have seen that I don't lose. And that's why I don't get debates, is because who's going to debate me and think they're going to walk away looking good? Not too many people think that way.
Whereas the people that have debated Gary, they're the only people, they've only debated Gary. Okay? They haven't openly debated thousands of other people.
So again, an accusation I have to defend myself against. So again, the McCarpet girl talked to lots of people. Lots of people talk to lots of other people. So, where does this go again? And most of anything I had as debates were video exchanges. So people made video responses to what other people said all the time. So again, what sense does this make? It doesn't make any sense.
Gave me a thumbs up, so I'm in agreement that Gary would likely lose a debate with me. Yeah, he would. He would lose hard. Hello, Damien.
Again, and what's the debate going to be about? You're going to make a bunch of accusations towards me about how I beat my wife, and I have to defend myself by pointing out how, well, no, there's no evidence of that, and there's nothing in my character that indicates that crime. Where's this accusation coming from? Do I have to videotape my whole past life to prove I never beat a woman ever? I mean, this is just such an obnoxious asshole to be this insanely illogical. I mean, he's got to know that's a fallacious argument. I'm going to make accusations and force you to defend yourself against them. I'm not going to prove anything ever.
Did you see Cosmic Skeptic's new vid? He actually had arguments, poor albeit. Yeah, well, Damien, it appears that they agreed on everything going in. So yeah, I mean that has its place, I suppose. But they both said they would press the red button. They both said they think the arguments are persuasive. So
yeah, so that's hard to understand, though, right? He says he disagrees with the asymmetry, which is the zero-sum game argument. Yet he'd still press the button, which is a little bit wacky. But I guess he's just basically saying that, yes, if you add up the suffering, it's more than the wonderful good. So we do lose something by eliminating life on Earth or life in the universe. It's something precious is somehow lost. When, again, all you're losing is the scars of the whip, because there's no good without the bad that made it. An argument I've been making for 10 years.
Yeah, they didn't really get anywhere in terms of the actual challenging it, which is what you want to see when 99% of the world, or whatever, a huge percentage of the world is perfectly okay with natalism. You want to see people that disagree. So
again, you say something like that, and yet that's not really the truth, as I've pointed out, that most of the people that have a high school education or better, if you just took a high school education or better, and took them as a group, and then took their demographic reproduction rate, all right, you'll find that it isn't going to be sufficient to maintain human existence. They'll be below the 2.5 necessary as a replacement population. So, I mean, that's a glaring fact, in my opinion, that most people are apprehensive about procreation. They see the world is crowded. They also see that it's hard to make enough of a living, and that they see it as a huge responsibility, and they see many of the negatives we're talking about as being practical facts. Now, whether or not they are anti-human and think existence is always exploitation, well, yeah, maybe they don't believe that. Maybe they have no empathy for all the other critters on Earth doing the same thing we're doing, just without multiplication and division. They don't get that. But the truth is, they're on the road. And here you're talking like there's no evidence that reason is seeping into the mind of man, and that the memes are evolving. The memes are clearly evolving. I don't think people with a high school education are falling into the same trap of like our parents, where they just did it because everybody else is doing it. People aren't that frivolous who have a high school education.
Agreed. Having an argument that actually gets somewhere, right? Because he promoted like the Steelman argument, or that was one of the things he didn't do, didn't get talked about, was like steelmanning the other person's position, right? Like granting them their best conceivable world, and then showing them how that thing isn't better than neutral.
Look, you want to take on that argument, okay, the best possible world, and then you're going to argue how the best possible world is still covered in blood. You've got a hard argument to make there, okay, because our biology does provide a bit of trickery in the sense that right now I have miseries, but I'm preoccupied, so I'm overcoming those miseries. But if somebody gave me a pill that instantly took away the tension, like, I got a stiff neck and I got a bad shoulder, and my feet are cold, and if I analyze it, I can feel these negative sensations. Okay, these little tensions, these little murders, so to speak, that are taking. There's something in my guts that isn't happy either, and I can find this stuff. And if somebody was to give me a pill that took all that away, I go, wow, that's ecstasy. That feels so cool to be unburdened. And that's the real trick of the game. So I've argued for virtual reality in the past. I still think it's preferable to reality, because it's so much cheaper to create a better world. So if humans were to go into that, that's a far preferable circumstance for sentient life. But I still argued that the catch is, though, you still have to create the need that makes the desire, you have to still create the thirst. You still have to walk the desert for the water to really mean something to you. And that catch means that you'd have to create sentient minds that were already deprivated to need any of that. You'd have to give them the little murders. You'd have to poke them, in different spots and create the unpleasant sensation to create the notion, the sensation of relief that we confuse with something called ecstasy or some other kind of thing. We call it some joy or happiness when what it is relief. Now, these are all arguments I've made in the videos you're insulting and degrading. You crazy person.
That was my main gripe with what they were saying. That ultimately ended up being cause and effect into a distance, it appears, through me starting first with Vegan Gains, then, well, technically with the other guys, because that got the Vegan Gains debate eventually. Then we did a debate with Perspective Philosophy, we got from the Vegan Gains stuff, and then Perspective Philosophy did a debate with myself.
All right, so this whole argument, like I said, I don't say debates are useless, but frankly, I don't know if they're better than video responses. So frankly, I've made a lot of video responses, okay? I mean, 50% of my videos, I don't know, 40% are video responses, maybe. And I see value in doing it that way. It's a simple thing. The person's making an assertion. You pick out the assertion they're making, and you explain why that assertion is fallacious or nonsensical or, problematic or whatever. There's your debate. What do I need to get into a conversational debate for when I already know what their point is and I already know where we're failing to communicate? So why not just narrow that down in a format that's has all the elements and you can think about what you're going to say. You're not putting somebody on a spot where, oh yeah, I have to think about it. You know, isn't that a big failure of live debate? Is that you're really just debating with somebody who has all their arguments well ordered and well constructed, and can articulate them quickly, not necessarily their real argument, just their impulsive reaction. And then you're also depending on, again, on the depth of their memory. When, you know, if you merely rephrase the sentence a little, it would have triggered a different response from them than the way it came out. So I'm just saying that the liability of live debate, just as somebody from both sides of it, is that first I have to, sometimes I'm disappointed in watching them in hindsight, because you say, well, gee, I should have made that argument there, but I just didn't think of it, because I didn't have time to think of it, because it's live. It has to happen right now, and you can't think about what you're going to say. You got to just say it. And you think that's better performance art. I'm not so sure. You're asserting a truth. I'm saying I don't know if that truth has much credibility. Debating is better than responding to points made.
Twice. And then after that, Perspective Philosophy and Cosmic Skeptic are friends in real life. If you go over to their Twitter page, they've taken pictures with each other in real life, like at bars and everything. You know, they hang out and stuff in real life. And they talked about it, and then Matt Dillahunty saw it was like growing in popularity, and he started talking about it. So Gary also claimed that I wasn't good for the cause and everything. Ooh. Yeah, not very reasonable, you know? So
again, and I'm supposed to believe that this slop that you call videos, that are just personal attacks, have some sort of value for the cause of antinatalism. I mean, the last 20 hours of videos you've made is 99% useless shit, not arguments of any kind. And then your argument is, fuck the argument, fuck the truth. Okay, let's play word games and try to back people who have false premises into corners, and then have them merely say, reject the conversation, and then call that a victory. I mean, in real persuasion, do you have some evidence that you're somehow much more effective than I am in persuading anybody of anything? And I don't think you have any evidence. You're making the assertion. I'm the one who has to somehow, you're saying, okay, I'm just going to assert I'm the winner, I'm great, and you suck. You don't provide any evidence, and then you're saying that I should waste my time trying to figure it out? Why? I found you irrelevant. You're saying I have to find you relevant. That's all you're saying.
he's just not a solid person mentally. That's why he's on a bunch of psychiatric medications. That's how he gets coached into doing those things.
All right, so another preposterous lie. Just where did you get a single fact indicating I'm on any medications? Nowhere. He has a theory about nicotine. He just says something stupid like it's a poison, and therefore it can't do anything like be a stimulant. I mean, you can argue almost every stimulant is in a sense a poison, but regardless, everything can be found to have some component, just like life itself. There's no good without the bad. So many wonder drugs have negative components to them. They kill good stuff while they kill the bad stuff. So again, this is such a stupid argument. It's just a stimulant. It happens to be an addictive substance. I happen to have gotten addicted to it. I'm not doing video campaigning for nicotine addiction. I've actually said exactly the opposite. I actually said that there should be a 3-strike rule for anybody who induces minors to use nicotine. Back when there were cigarettes, not vaping all over the place. But anybody who would induce a minor to do it, and if he did it 3 times, I'd kill him. A death penalty. Okay, so I'm clearly not a fan of nicotine. I'm not suggesting anybody else use it, but I'm not going to deny the truth that, yeah, as an addict, I do see its beneficial effects on my addicted personality. As an addicted personality, the drug is essential in some cases to my thought process. So what? Why is this a subject?
things in the first place, and sucks in all that nicotine and everything. I mean, nicotine in nature, I've said this a bunch of times, but it's a pesticide. I mean, plants like tomatoes, potatoes, tobacco, they make it in the quantities that they do, in order to dehydrate any of the creatures that consume them. That's how.
Yeah, so what? And that's probably why every chemical exists in every plant that we've ever derived it from. I mean, penicillin is exactly that. I mean, so what? That doesn't mean it's, again, to humans, that it can't have some other benefit to their function. So again, I mean, you could argue that dopamine, lots of things could be made by a plant for one purpose. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact of whether it can be used by us for some other purpose. So it's just such a weak argument. So you don't like nicotine. Fine. Okay, maybe you don't like marijuana, maybe you don't like alcohol, you don't like anything. It's okay. Yeah, I'm sort of anti-drug fundamentally. Try not to use anything because all of them have downsides. So what? It's a so what kind of conversation. You're saying that this is an essential thing. It's a fundamental thing I have to change or else. No, I don't.
They evolved that thing, and then through the dehydration of the insects, it kills them. So he obviously has like this really serious addictive personality disorder thing, and I just want people to understand that that's like.
So again, absolutely no evidence that I've ever been addicted to anything else ever in my life, ever. I mean, you know, alcohol was a little bit fudgy in my youth. You know, in my teenage years, might have had a little bit of a dependency on it to get through the day in the morning. You know, for 2 or 3 years of high school, yeah, I couldn't really face it without a shot in the morning. But no evidence. So he has absolutely no evidence that I have had any addiction problems besides smoking cigarettes, nicotine. No other evidence whatsoever. And he just makes this statement that I have some addictive personality and I'm constantly addicted to everything and blah, 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 blah. I don't like change much, I will admit. So in that sense, I have a I don't like change personality. So, but this he has just nothing to base this accusation on. So he wants to have a debate where I just sit here and defend myself against his perpetual and nonsensical, just out of the thin air accusations he'll throw. What a fucking lunatic.
Grounds to say that somebody's correct just because they're like they've been totally passionately overwhelmed by what they think is the truth. And yeah, while it appears that this is very
so we have no evidence of this. Again, we don't have any quotes taken from any of my videos giving us reason why I've committed all these crimes. So even if you took the great Chai Cho guys videos, you know, the ones that are some of my best poetry, so to speak, my most articulate statements, why don't you just pick on those and say that's, you know, not good enough? Show how one of the statements in those videos is just insanely wrong and just, well, it sends everybody in the wrong direction. It makes people think the wrong thing. You're such an insane, crazy fuck.
It's based specifically because of the arguments around, not around the arguments around asking consent for the unborn, and you can't ask for consent from the unborn.
Again, and who asked, when did I ever say we should ask consent from the unborn? Again, consent is a real thing that humans need when they do something aggressive. So whenever you're going to do something that aggressively affects somebody else, the only way you get past the Jefferson taboo, the Jefferson restraint about, you know, your rights end where somebody else's rights begin, the only way you get around that is consent. Consent makes it possible for you to commit an act of aggression, to do something that's going to affect somebody else. That's what consent affords you. And that's what consent is about. It's not asking permission. It's having permission. Two things are different, okay? And all that's being stated is if you think you have a right to impose, all right, that you have to have the right based on either consent or absolute knowledge of the rightness. So if the rightness is in doubt, you have to have the consent. The only way you evade it is to have no doubt about rightness. And obviously we can't have that when we're imposing on something else, especially imposing something like life, that there's no reasonable belief, that you can't have a reasonable belief that you have control over the experiment. It's not reasonable.
Because that's ridiculous, as I covered in that 4-hour video. rebutting every single point that Gary made and writing every single thing down that he's done. Has anybody else ever done that? Just like sat through.
Right, he wrote everything down, right? So where did you publish this? Just post it somewhere where I can read this profoundly, dully, stupid, idiotic statement of yours where you just make a bunch of false accusations you back up with no evidence.
Like, and just written down the things that he was saying and showed how they were logically fallacious, like begging the question, equivocating.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. So give me the list of my quotes that you say are outrageous statements made by me. So show the direct quotes of outrageous statements made by me. You fucking liar.
I don't think anyone else, I've never seen anybody else do that. So, but yeah, if anybody else wants to ask any questions, and there's obviously going to be a lot of dislikes on this, I would like for you guys to disagree with me. Please, I'm asking for disagreement.
Disagreement about what? How crazy you are could be the only subject here. How batshit insane are you?
I'm asking for it. I don't like disagreement, but I'm fine with it. Because that's how you arrive at concession eventually, by having the conversations. If there's no one having the conversation...
You're right. You arrive at concession by making 15 hours of unsubstantiated accusations. And then finally the person just says, fuck it, okay, whatever. Well, what am I going to concede? There's nothing to concede here except that your behavior is so aberrant from anything reasonable. This is completely unreasonable behavior. That's all that can be stated as my concession. My concession is you are unreasonable, psychotic, you're having some kind of brain issue that makes you incoherent to anything that could possibly be relevant.
Conversations, there's zero chance for the conversations to be had. So the issues that someone like Gary has or developed or whatever over the course of his life that stifle like a conversation from taking place.
And again, the evidence of a stifled conversation is what? Where did somebody publish my quotes with their retractions where they explained how that's completely impossible, that statement he made could be possibly right? And where have I not run away from reading that and responding to it and engaging with it in any way? Oh, that's right. There's no evidence. You, on the other hand, make these horrible videos where you're taking these cheap, awful shots at my integrity, my history, everything about me. You have slandered disgustingly, libeled, and you're saying that I have some obligation to engage with you as something other than a fucking asshole, a preposterous asshole. The dirtiest, stinkingest kind of smelly monster comes up to me and says, I have an obligation to, engage with it. No, I don't.
Would be by far some of the biggest issues you could possibly have when furthering these types of arguments. Maybe not for keeping people, deluded and stuff. They're confused already, but
some more vague notion that there's a bunch of these deluded people that I have somehow instrumentally deluded with some deluded notions of deludedness. So where? Cite them. And his argument is, well, you've deluded him with this idea that we could actually argue that evolution is a fact. That's a delusion now. So it's not only the God delusion, he's basically saying there's an evolution delusion. It's a delusion. Belief in evolution is a delusion now, because it can't possibly be the best answer one could arrive at based on the evidence.
Or they don't have enough time to listen to everything. But even in those cases, it's still a bad idea, because you gotta have people being challenged. And if you don't, then you're not going to have the conversations. And if you can't challenge...
Yeah, right. Challenged by what? Again, a bunch of personal accusations that don't have anything to do with anything I've done as a video maker on YouTube. So you've presented no evidence of any consistent or systemic behavior on my part in my videos that is wrong. Here's the clips of him doing it wrong. He hasn't shown any of those. He hasn't demonstrated. He hasn't taken any of my conversations with other people and explained how I did it wrong. Nothing. All right. Guess we'll take a break. Well, I think maybe we'll just say video 1. I don't know if I want to play all this, but it's just the same shit over and over and over again. So, maybe it's time to paraphrase, So, till the next time and such. Again, I think it's a valid conversation to have as recognizing that there is a state of mind of the human race in a generic sense. There are optimists. They love the underdog. They love fighting and winning. They love that whole idea of struggle and victory. It's very appealing to them. And telling them the story that the right thing to do is not to fight and, not to attempt victory because the cost of it will be way too high. To try to come up with some storyline or a metaphor that sort of explains the cleaning up. And that's sort of what Old Fan did in taking some of my content where I talked about the fact that you have to think of your life as being a janitor. There's messes everywhere that need to be cleaned up. That there's just no other better job to have on planet Earth than to clean up the messes. It's to clean up all the stuff that shouldn't be happening, to prevent the fires, to prevent all the stuff that's happening. There's a ton of harm to be easily and kind of expediently mitigated. And so your life is a service to the mess we're making, not a service to accomplishment. That the greatest, the grand achievement isn't winning the silly gold medal. It's preventing the waste of the resources on competitions to award gold medals. That's the far more admirable medal to win, is that I destroyed the Olympics. That's a great human achievement. But anyway, so I mean, like I said, he's saying that all of those arguments from duty and responsibility to the victims is a bad formula for argument, and he doesn't have any evidence for how it's a bad formula. He just says it. So, fuck this. I mean, this is just too silly. I mean, you figure YouTube gets silly. I mean, fake Sagan became a Christian, so I mean, things go silly. Way silly. So this is just another example of it going way silly. But I am getting kind of old for this. I mean, I'm just, this is just too stupid.